This is Vision Pro. It costs £3,500. This is the brand new MetaQuest 3S and it costs 290 quid. And in this video, I'm going to tell you which one I prefer. Right, I imported Vision Pro from the US into the UK back in February this year, and it cost me well over £3,500 to do so. I was immediately impressed. This is a technical marvel. If you haven't checked out Vision Pro yet, and you can go to an Apple store nearby, go and do the demo. It's just amazing. There's just two problems with it, two big problems. The first one is it's the price. It's just so astronomically expensive. The second thing is that it is just very uncomfortable. I can't wear this for long stretches of time because it's just so heavy. So when Meta got in touch and said, do you fancy checking out the MetaQuest 3S, which is their brand new entry-level mixed reality headset, I said yes, because on paper it's lighter by quite a margin compared to Vision Pro. It's also ridiculously cheaper, 290 quid, £3,500. And the MetaQuest stuff has been around for quite a long time, so in theory there should be more going on with this compared to Vision Pro in terms of apps and games and experiences. But the big question is, what do you get if you spend over £3,000 or $3,000 less on a mixed reality headset? The answer is very surprising. Before I get into that, we have done some research on this channel and it turns out that over 87% of people who watch this channel regularly aren't subscribed. If that's you, if you enjoy this channel and you haven't hit that button yet, just give it a little click. It makes a massive difference and it means we get more subscribers and we can bring you more awesome tech like this. But let's get into the MetaQuest 3S. Okay, specs and pricing for the MetaQuest 3S do get off to a very good start because it has the same Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 chip and 8GB of RAM as the more expensive MetaQuest 3. The resolution is a bit lower, so this has 1832 by 1920 pixels in each eye, whereas the MetaQuest 3 is 4K. This has two RGB cameras for stereoscopic color pass-through, 4 VGA cameras for tracking hands and controllers, 2 flood LEDs for illumination and more reliable hand interactions, and the battery lasts on average 2.5 hours, which is 0.3 hours longer than the MetaQuest 3. The 3S weighs 514 grams and it comes with 2 controllers, a glasses spacer, and well, that's it. But that's not a bad package actually for the price. You can get an official MetaQuest case, which Meta sent me to check out, and a very handy little charging dock. In terms of pricing, the 128GB model is £289 in the UK and $299 in the US. The 256GB version is £379 in the UK and $399 in the US. So you're saving quite a bit of money with this, and it has a very similar spec to the MetaQuest 3. But what's it like? In terms of build quality, it's really good. It's plastic, obviously, but it's good plastic, and more importantly, it just feels really well put together and as though it could take a bit of stick, which is important if your kids get their hands on this, obviously. Lenses are exposed, more exposed than Vision Pro, and you do have to move them manually like that, either outwards or inwards to get the right vision, you know, without any blur going on. The fit is really good actually. It's very easy to get it feeling nice on your head. So you've got a strap up here which helps take the pressure off your cheeks, which for me is a big problem with Vision Pro. You can do that there. You can then tighten the strap at the back to make sure it sits comfortably and securely on your head. And you can even adjust these side arms here. So once again, to take the pressure off your cheeks and off your nose, fiddle around with that until it feels good. And it does feel good. You can wear this for quite a long time without it getting too fatiguing. You can feel, I mean, they're still, all of these mixed reality headsets are heavy, obviously, but compared to Vision Pro, this just, it feels a lot more comfortable, and that's the key thing. But yeah, fit and comfort, great stuff, really happy with it. The buttons, you got power obviously, but you also have a button for going into the immersive environment or going pass through and seeing what's going on in the room around you, and a volume rocker as well, which is very nice. The controllers are fantastic as well. They're very nice to hold. The ergonomics are top notch. The buttons are all in the right place. It's got these thumb sticks as well, 4 triggers, loads of stuff you can do with these. They've got haptics built into them as well, which again are very nice, and they do have wrist straps, so if you're battling away doing something in an imaginary world and you do that, you don't take out your loved one. The hardware, really impressive. So the whole point of the MetaQuest 3S is to make mixed reality / AR, VR more accessible to more people based on the pricing really, and the ease with which you can get up and running with this. The setup process for this is very simple. The room scanning, where it looks around your room and maps out the boundaries, is stunning. You don't really get that with Vision Pro. I know Vision Pro is aware of the room, but it doesn't do this kind of mapping thing where it sends these lines and stuff around the walls, and it's really impressive and it adds to the experience. It immediately makes you feel immersed in a completely different world. When it comes to interacting with stuff and using the operating system, you have two options. You can use obviously the controllers, which you'll spend more time using really. These are more accurate to point at stuff and choose things and press buttons and stuff. However, you can use your hands, and you can use your hands in the same way that you use your hands in Vision OS. There's no eye tracking, so you can't look around and do that amazing thing where you choose things just by looking at them. You do have to point at things, but it has the same pinch to select stuff, and it's fairly accurate. If you reach out, for instance, and start typing on the keyboard, you wouldn't want to write a novel on it, but you can fairly accurately type in a password or just a web address or just a short search query on the browser. It's quite straightforward to use, quite intuitive, and if the controllers aren't to hand, and if you just want to go into YouTube and start watching something, you can just reach out, press it, or move things around, resize windows. It felt very good to use. The pass-through quality, which is basically using the cameras on the front of this to project the image of what's around you into your eyeballs, it's not bad. It's, in terms of quality, laughably, it's not far off Vision Pro. Vision Pro, it doesn't have amazing pass-through. It's not like 4K crystal clear vision. It's fairly grainy, and unless the lighting is top notch in the room, it won't look brilliant. It's the same on this really. You can see stuff, you can interact with things. I can still type away on my computer through this and talk to people and know what's going on, but there's a bit of grain there, let's put it that way. There's a bit of noise there, but yeah, pass through does the job. When it comes to the operating system, it's not that different to Vision Pro. You can have obviously multiple windows open, you can resize them, drag them around, push them away, pull them back, put them against walls, and then you can walk around the room, and wherever you left those windows is exactly where they stay. They stay resolutely in place. It's incredibly responsive. There's no lag, no stutter, no delay. It feels just like Vision OS. It's just a lower resolution basically and a different operating system. But in principle, these two things do the exact same thing. There's immersive environments on this as well, so if you press that button once, it takes you from your room into a make-believe coffee shop or a fantasy land or a beautiful room overlooking mountains at sunset. It's very, very impressive. Again, the resolution is lower than what you get on Vision Pro and MetaQuest 3 and MetaQuest Pro and all that sort of stuff, but for 290 quid, you can't really complain, and it's still very immersive. It's still very atmospheric. You've got the spatial audio going on. It's really impressive. Going back to mixed reality, if you've not experienced that before, Meta has developed a game called First Encounters, where these little blue and red things smash their way through your wall. Not really, obviously, but they smash their way through your fake wall into the room, and you can shoot them with a bubble gun. It's not very violent, obviously. It's all very kid-friendly, but it's just very impressive, and it shows you what you can do with these mixed reality environments. So I definitely recommend having a go with that. But it's also worth diving into games, entertainment, and productivity on this. So let's quickly cover all three of those things. I tried 5 games on the MetaQuest 3S and they were really interesting. So the first one was 11 table tennis, which is really realistic, and this is where the haptics in the controllers really come into their own. So when you hit the ball, you can feel it, or you think you can feel it because the haptic goes off on the controller. But what's really impressive is just how responsive it is. There's no lag. Everything responds immediately as though you're playing it. As a result, it really feels like you're playing table tennis. It wasn't cheap, it was 22 quid. A lot of these games seem to be quite expensive, but the amount of fun you can get out of them, and you can play these 2-player if you've got someone who wants to play with you, or you can play against a cat, as I did here. I then tried Jurassic World Aftermath Collection, which is my first experience of a fully immersed game, and it's the first time I've ever felt a little bit nauseous, which I know is quite a common thing. But again, the graphics were impressive. Even the lower resolution on the 3S didn't really matter because it was a more kind of cartoony style of game, but it was great, very atmospheric. I then played Drumbeats VR, which, trust me, you need to sit down with. Don't try and play this standing up. It looks ridiculous. But if you sit down, you can play what is basically Guitar Hero, but with drums. Very difficult, incredibly hard to play, but addictive, and again, very immersive. And thanks to the haptics and stuff in the controllers, it just felt very realistic. Tetris Effect Connected is obviously a very modern take on a very classic game, which I spent lots of my childhood playing, and it's as addictive as you'd expect. Lots of music built into it, and it's really, really fun to play. And then I played Zombieland VR Headshot Fever, which isn't safe for kids in terms of the violence and the fruity language, but an awful lot of fun. And this is one of the big differences for me between MetaQuest 3S and Vision Pro. There are games on Vision Pro, but there's nowhere near as many as this, and this is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to have fun with these things, and I had more fun with this than I did with this. And that brings us to entertainment. The first thing to say is that there is a native YouTube app on this which we don't have on Vision Pro, which is always annoying, and it's very, very good. It basically turns YouTube into a cinema experience. You can have this massive curved screen, you can have a flat screen if you want. There's different sizes of the screen that you can choose from. The quality is very good. You've got the entire YouTube interface there as well, and it does this lovely thing where it reflects the colours of whatever you're watching on the fake floor down below. It just makes it a very immersive, if solitary experience. But then, if you're anything like me, you probably watch YouTube on your own. You know, I don't put my girlfriend through the stuff that I watch on YouTube, so to have this available to do that if I'm travelling or lying in bed and want to while away a few minutes watching my favourite channels, it's a brilliant way to do it. And again, because it's not too heavy, there's no fatigue that sets in too quickly, and that is just what you want. When it comes to Netflix and Amazon Prime, all those other video services, at the moment you have to use the web browser for those, but it works pretty well, to be fair. It would just be nice to see the native apps for those services at some stage, but can't really complain, again, for 290 quid. And that brings me to productivity. The main thing I love about Vision Pro is the integration with my MacBook, so I can basically strap this to my face and then take the Mac's display and put it into Vision OS and have a much bigger display, and it's a very lovely way of working in a solitary fashion where you just close yourself off from the world and get very productive. Problem again is that it is very heavy, which doesn't help after a while. You can do the same thing with the MetaQuest 3S. There's lots of different ways of doing it. There's lots of different apps that you can use. The one that I chose was Immersed, which is free. There is a pro tier, which you obviously have to pay for, or I think you can get into the pro tier if you use this regularly. But the idea is that, again, you connect this to your Mac via an Immersed client, and then you take your Mac display and throw it into your MetaQuest 3S environment. And in a way, it's better than what you get on Vision Pro because you can have up to 5 displays. I know Vision OS is getting an update soon which will improve some of that stuff, but you can have up to 5 displays from your Mac running on this. The other thing that you can do is have this kind of window for your keyboard. So you can basically draw around your keyboard and have a space where you can see through the immersive environment and see your typing and see your trackpad and see the keyboard. It's absolutely obvious, but really smart. There's a very cool hand gesture where you turn your hand over and you get access to the menu. You can turn the screens off. You can change where you're sitting. And just very quickly on that, you can have your own immersive environments, your own private rooms that you work in, or you can work in a public space where there's other people working there. Now, I didn't get to the point where I was talking to these people, but you can have a chat and you can sit next to them and work next to them in this virtual environment. That's quite a different, quite a new concept for me. That's something that I'm not sure I would use personally, but I know people do. And there were people in these rooms, which, again, a whole new world to experience. And once again, it works very well. The only problem, 2 issues really. One of them is battery life. The battery does drain significantly quicker when you're using Immersed, in my experience. It just seems to hammer the battery a bit more, and it does get warmer. Not uncomfortably so, but it's doing a lot, you can tell, when you're doing this Immersed stuff. And the other problem is the resolution. It's just a little bit too low for me. I want a little bit more resolution. I mean, 4K would be the best thing, I think, really, but it's just, some of the text is a little bit tricky to read. So resolution wise, it's so close, but again, it's 290 quid. I have to keep reminding myself of this, and it's not unworkable. You can spend less than 300 quid on this headset and get access to something very, very similar to what you have on Vision Pro, bar the resolution, and which also does a bit more, has a bit more functionality. And that brings me on to my inevitable conclusion about the MetaQuest 3S. There's so much more you can do with the MetaQuest 3S. I can't fit it all into this review because it would take forever. I will be using it going forward, I think, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell not to miss any future updated reviews on this. But in conclusion, it's amazing for the money. The hardware quality, the image quality, which yes is lower than Vision Pro obviously and lower than Meta Quest 3, but it's still very good for the price. The comfort, the fit, the experience once you're playing around with the OS and getting used to spatial computing, all of that stuff for such little money is really, really impressive. And yes, with Vision Pro you get eye tracking, you get that very high resolution, you get the Apple ecosystem, although not as much as you might think actually, interestingly, but it's $3,500. And when you strip all of that technical stuff back, the experience is the same, if not better, in this. If you've never experienced mixed reality, VR, AR, any of that stuff before, get this. And if you've still got some time and you want to hear my full thoughts on Vision Pro, keep watching for a link.